and here we are in the new year. Chapter 17. Hecas. This is the second age of the Roman people, and as if it's adolescence, so it's getting older, in which Maxime, or greatly, was virilitating. He was vigorous and growing, and with a certain flourishing of virtues. It exhausted, it was burning and fermenting and heating up. Idiqui. And so, in it, adults still, there was a certain ferocitas, a bit of wildness from the shepherds who lived out in the wilds, and certain still indomitable. This was breathing or blowing. There was a bit of spirit still of untamedness. Indies. Then it was quod that exercitus nominative, that an army did something to Posthumus the emperor, or in the accusative, who was present participating, he was infitiating, he was confessing or saying the things which he had promised, praedas, the booty or rewards he had promised. He obviously not come good on it, and in fact a sedition, and with a sedition in the castris, in the camps, he was lapidated, he was hit with stones to death. Okay, so to fitior is to confess something, infitior is the opposite, that means deny, and that sub Appius Claudio, they didn't want to conquer their enemy, nolvit vincere hostem, when it was possible, when they were able to, and that under the Duce, under the General Valero, plurasque, many of them were detracting from military service, many of them didn't want to serve, and the fasces, that's the bundle of rods, of the consul, were fractied, were broken. Inde. So then, the most clarissimus, the superlative, the most outstanding principes, these are leading citizens, which were adverse the will of them, the voluntate sua of the army, they multivited the army, punished them with exile, so they were sent somewhere. As when Corollialus, present participant, he was ordering them to colore the fields, that's to till and plough the fields, and etc. And he was not less ferocious in punishing this injury or insult. It looks like they didn't want to, with arms, except that Nissi, with his martyr, his mother, brought in the signers of the standards, and the son was looks like the son was bringing in the standards to fight, and the mother, who was Veturia, she disarmed him, exarmavited him with her suas lacrimis. It's an alternate spelling of tears. So looks like he was going to punish a lot of these people, but his mother was crying, so it didn't. And well, it keeps going. I'll scroll a bit. Okay, so still going on. We've got Camillum in the accusative, so we can't have Ipsius and Camillum, so we'll put them in agreement. So this same Camillus, that unjustly, iniqui, unevenly, amongst the plebs and the army, he seemed, videritor, to divide, to have, that's the past infinitive, to have divided the praedem, the booty, coming from vientem, what's that, vi or some places, ve. So it was another reason, it's that whole section, where's that begin? Up there somewhere, up there. Okay, that's one whole section. Said Hick, but he consented, he grew older in the captive city, so he took Ve and he grew old and he came out Melior. Melior was better, because he wasn't killed, and soon people were supplicating that he should vindicate, he should avenge or take some justice on the Gallo hostes, on the Gallic enemies. So it looks like he lived in the captured city for a while and took on some enemies in Gaul. With the Senate, Quoque also, he was vehement, or someone was, and there was a curtamen, there was a contest, rather vehement between Aquo and Bono, between goodness and fairness going on with the Senate, which usually happens, adio ut, two correlatives, to such an extent that, having relictus their sedibusses, having left their homes, they threatened their fatherland, their patria, with solitude in them. It's a bit of a wasteland and destruction, so it looks like they threaten to maybe turn the homeland into a desert and then destruction. That's how angry they got. The Prima Discordia, the first discord or trouble was because of the impotentiam fenoritums. These are people who lend out money for interest, fenorum. Impotia can mean weakness or violence, so we'll see if it was violence. Quibus saventibus, with them being very savage, I guess the people who are the interest bearers are taking it out in the backs, also as if they were slaves, civilitude, meaning so. Looks like they lent money and then they treated rather savagely the people as if they were their slaves who were paying it back. So these plebs armata, they were plebs armed themselves into a sacred mountain, seceded, they separated, went to this sacred mountain, and with difficulty, and not unless they impetrated some tribunes. So they were asking for, and impetrat means they received them, so they wanted some tribunes to come along and give them help. So of the facundia and the sapientia, the wisdom of the man Menentius Agrippa, by his authority, these plebs were revoca ested. The plebs got what they wanted, they got a tribune, and they came back. Exstat, it still stands satisfactorily efficace, it's productive to the Concordia, to bringing together the peace, as is fabula. So this story still exists, and it's of an oration antiqua, so of an old type of Latin that would have been in. It still remains though, in which the sedice inter se, so amongst themselves, quondam, once upon a time, this guy had said, looks like they've stood out as human artists, so the joints or the limbs, so he's called all the members of society, I seem to remember this story, maybe it's in Livy, are different parts of the body. That with all of people, fugenti bussing, opere, solus, venter. So the stomach alone seemed to be not doing any work. Opere, immunis. So it's the stomach seems to be immune or free from having to do any work for all of them, and this is what it's doing, agerating. Then they all started getting sick, and C junction separated. They were returned into grace, you might want to say, quando, they all sensed that it was the work of this stomach to irrigate, to flow in, and if you look at irrigation, with turning food into blood. So they thought that the stomach wasn't doing any work, and that would be like the Senate, I suppose. They thought it was like the stomach, it did nothing, and all the rest of them are doing work, but it seems the stomach was doing a job, and if they didn't put work together, they'd all become moribundus, they'd all be dying from this separation, and so they discovered that the stomach turned food into blood, which flowed along their artices, I guess, which is through their joints. Anyway, how far are we going? Down to there. Secundum. So it looks like the second discord was in the middle of the city, media urb. It was the libido, the lust, decemviratus. Decemvirs are 10 men. This conflated, it was it blew up. So the second discord was by the lust of these people. I guess that's some sort of genitive you might want to put in English. Adlatus, or you might put 2 L's there. Decem means 10, so 10 laws were brought in by the Greek by Greek custom, I want to say, or they originally did. Lecti means chosen from the will of the people. The people were eubenting, the people were demanding this. So there were 10 leading sort of laws, the 10 main laws, you might want to say. And they conscripturate, they wrote this, and they were ordinated or put out into duodecim tabulus, that's 12 tables or something, tablets or something of rock, which was tota justia, which was all their laws. Tradidor handed in Tamen, nevertheless, they were retaining fasces with the sort of furor, the madness, regio with that, which kings had quoted once, certain kings had this sort of madness, so nevertheless they were still handing down these fasces. Yep. Anticeteros. Before the rest, Appius was Elatus. He got himself up with the EO insolent of this type of insolence. He stood out before the rest of them. His insolence that he had destined. He had picked out an Engenwam virgin, so a freeborn. She wasn't like a slave who was set free. He picked out one for stupro. Stuprum is sexual deviancy or something. He probably wanted to rape her or something. And he was oblivious. He was forgetful, both of Lucretia, who had killed herself, I believe, and of the king and of the laws which he himself had composed. So he must have been one of the people who had composed the law so this wouldn't happen. And anyway, he was forgetful of it, and he latest himself. He'd become very lofty in his insolence and decided he was going to rape this girl. Okay, here's a daily dictionary word, infitio. We saw in the first line: to deny, not confess, withhold, contradict, repudiate, etc. Back to the plot. And so, when oppressam filiam, in the accusative, so he saw his girl being oppressed by some judgment, judicio, maybe if you look at, she was dragged into servitude. He saw, here's the guy doing it. Virginius, the father of this girl, saw by this maljustice, you might want to say, his daughter being dragged off into servitude, and she was in Genium, she was a freeborn girl, so without delay, nil cunctatus, there was no hesitating, and in the middle of the forum, by his own hand, menus sua, he interficated. I guess he killed his own daughter, or did he kill the other guy anyway? Probably killed his daughter. And he had modus the sickness, having brought forward all the standards of his fellow soldiers, his commilitones, totem, so all their domitors, all this decemvirs, I guess. Looks like all these people, they dragged them from the Aventine Mount by arms and threw them into carcerum and catinas. Catinas are chains, and the carcerum is the jail. So he got some help from his friends, and it looks like they besieged all these corrupt people and threw them in jail. And that's it.